All right, welcome to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Mixer from Greenfield PD in California. He has 30 years, almost 31 years experience in law enforcement. He started at LAPD, he worked for the DA's office. He is now the chief of police for the last 4 years, and he has a military background. So I'm really looking forward to sharing his insights and perspectives with you today. Welcome to the show, Chief Mixer. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we were talking a little bit offline about how quickly time goes, and I completely agree with you. I feel like I blinked and now I'm older than I ever thought I was going to be. But can you give us maybe a little bit of background? I know I shared kind of the highlights, but a little bit of background into you and, maybe how quickly the last 30, 31 years have gone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, starting off when you're young, teenager in the military, I was down in the Navy in San Diego, and you're just, full of energy and, ready to take on life. I joined the LAPD in 1995 and wound up retiring from there. But, you're young, you're viral, you're strong, you feel confident, and you just feel like nothing's going to get you down, and you just kind of move on forward, and you're that snowplow just pushing everything out of the way. But you don't realize how things do catch up to you. Um, that feeling of invincibility when you're young, man, that's wish I had that now. That drive. But yeah, it's something because time flies. You don't think of retirement. You don't think of taking care of your body for the longevity, for the long haul, or those later years in life, right? So yeah, it's crazy how fast it goes.
Yeah, I mentioned this before, but I was doing a briefing recently and we were talking about wellness. And there was this young guy, he was on patrol, and, I would say he was probably 22, 23, young, and his comment was basically, I'm young, I have so much time, wellness is a problem for later. And my response to him was, one, later comes quicker than you think. And two, for anyone who is listening who's younger in the career, if you feel good right now, if your body feels good, mentally you feel good, that's great. We want to keep you there, so how can we be as proactive as possible so that when you blink and you're old like us, one day you're happy that you put in place those habits, and those proactive steps early so that, later in life you're not kicking yourself saying, I wish.
Of course, and that's a good point because if you start early, then you have these lifelong habits, and you just get better and better as you get older. You're more aware, more conscious of what you do, how you eat, how you sleep, how you treat people, how you treat yourself.
100%. So you came from one of the largest police agencies in the country, and I would imagine that you have seen a lot, you've been through a lot, and now being in a position of leadership, from a leadership perspective, what do you think is the most valuable leadership lesson that you've learned so far?
Wow, it's interesting because like you mentioned, there's so much to learn, and there's so many people that influence you from my father or sergeants or senior officers that you watch how they behave themselves and how they deal with situations. And probably one of the key attributes is being humble. You can be assertive and humble at the same time. You can be smart and humble, but not being that cocky, arrogant person, right? So you can have all the experience in the world, but with humility, you're able to move people into a certain direction without having to force them or being that sledgehammer versus that gentle constant of water carving the rock. So humility goes a long way into being able to do that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I believe, and I would love if you have, an opinion on this, but I believe that two things can be true at once. And sometimes we don't think that way. Sometimes we think it's like one or nothing. And so for you to say that, I agree. I think that you can be humble and strong at the same time. You can be kind and firm at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Two things can exist at one time.
Exactly, it's and not or.
A
Yeah.
100%. One of the things you said to me when we first met was that you were the poster child for what not to do when you were younger. Can you walk us through what you meant by that?
Absolutely. So starting in Los Angeles and 77th Division, one of the busiest, actually the busiest division, entire LAPD, Florence and Normandy, the riots, Crips, gangs, Florence 18th Street, all that, craziness. And you take on the sense of, because you're empowered with the ethics that we have, the badge that we have, the partners that we have that are going to back you up, and you have this certain feeling of invincibility.
Mm,
And then it carries on into your personal life, and that's where it shouldn't, because that's where the mistakes start to happen. But you know, I loved my job so much that I was happy to go back, and it really took a toll on my relationships. Workaholic, you're a typical guy, loved it, wanted to be there, enjoyed it, and hey, we need you back. Something's going on. Great. Made detective. And that was crazy because, at a time period, we'd have 110, 115, 120 homicides a year, in a little 12 square mile area. It's nonstop. So a lot of activity. So a lot of reasons to go back to work. With that, that's where my relationship suffered, because it's easier to just go back to work and work with the guys and have a good time doing something versus being at home and trying to work out what's going on with my partner, how are they feeling, what's going on, taking their feelings in consideration. So yeah, I'm on my third wife now, so divorced twice. Luckily, everything was amicable. It wasn't, some crazy stuff, but it took a toll on my relationships. And it's interesting because that's one thing that I try to impart on our younger officers now. And we always hear it, what's the most important thing? And they say my family. And guess what? It wasn't for me for my first 10 years of my job. So, and that took a long time. And you see it in other people. They're out doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, maybe drinking too much, maybe, having multiple, partners when they're supposed to be dedicated to one. So is your family really the most important thing? So that reevaluation and constant evaluation kind of helped me, after my stumbles and falls. But that helped me get back on the right path. And hopefully I can have an impact on our younger officers.
yeah, and I think that unfortunately, sometimes we do have to go through those things to be able to have that perspective and then to be able to help other people. And I can really relate to what you said about, pouring everything into work and sacrificing things in, my personal life. I did that too. And it's so nuanced, and I've asked myself this question, and I've asked this question on this podcast before too, because I think it's such a double-sided coin. On one side of it, it's like, would I have progressed as quickly in my career if I didn't do that? If I didn't pour everything into it and, put my head down and grind it out and work as hard as possible, would I have gotten to the place, that I am now as quickly as I did if I didn't do that? Could I have reached the same point if I would have had more of a balance and a focus on my personal life? And for a long time, I think my answer to that was, I don't know. I can't go back in time and there's no way for me to like know if that is true or not. But now I think as I really try to reflect on it, I think the answer is yes. I think that again, two things can be true at once. I think that you can pour everything into work. I think you can work really hard. I think that you can, give 100%. And you can also do those things in your personal life. It's hard. It's hard to balance, those things. And I also don't know if I truly believe in equal balance. I don't think that anything's ever going to be equal. I think there's always going to be give and take in both areas. But I think now as I get older, I think, yes, you can still be super effective in your career. You can advance in your career and you can have a healthy home life. And one of the questions that kind of impacted me. This was a while ago. Someone asked me because they were talking about how it was another chief and they were talking about how they feel like they're a workaholic. They love their job. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, "When do I know if it's healthy or unhealthy?" And I was like, man, again, I think it's a nuanced question. It's, I think, evaluating why we're doing these things. Are we doing these things because we genuinely love it? are we doing it because we're trying to avoid going home, you know?
Yeah.
Because if it's because you love it and you have, a healthy home life, then I don't think that that's a problem. I think that that's okay. But if you don't have a healthy home life and you're trying to avoid that, and so therefore you're working, 15-hour days, maybe it's time to evaluate if that's healthy or not.
So true. And there's a lot there to unpack, really.
Yeah.
Going back to the point, can you find balance and can you do both? I kind of lean towards the no,
Okay.
especially in your younger years,
Okay.
because that is where, and I think Scott Galloway, the author and a professor, I think at New York University, he talks about this where when you're young and you're able to generate income or to put yourself in a better position, you have to work hard and you have to lay down some of the other stuff and focus on your job, and the work that you're doing. So it's out of balance. Yeah, and that sacrifice of 12, 15 hours a day, you look up, oh shoot, it's midnight and your partner's already asleep and you need to get to bed. I don't think you'd be there if you hadn't sacrificed that. Later you'll find the balance, but when you're younger, that's the best time that we can build ourselves up in our career, make, by the work we're doing, by the effective policing, by the leadership, you're setting yourself up for that next thing or setting up the people behind you. And then you get to a place where you can kind of plateau and find that balance and back and forth.
Yeah.
Then it matters on with your partner, right? So my wife now, I'm so lucky. She's so when I've had to turn around, go right back to work, got home, in Los Angeles, a lot more call outs there. 55 miles one way, because couldn't live in LA, so we lived on, one of the suburbs out Rancho Cucamonga. 55 miles one way. I'd get home 6, 7 at night, get a phone call, I have to turn around, come right back. And she'd quick put some food together for me, give me a little backpack with some clean clothes, and I'd head back into work. And having that right partner matters,
Yeah.
as long as they're understanding to it. And not everybody has that. So I feel really lucky to have that now. And I appreciate that, and I think that's the biggest part is I'm so thankful that I have that and I can lean on her to help me when I need to go, do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you. And I also think that setting expectations and having healthy, open lines of communication really helps with that. And um, I was talking to someone recently and they said they told their partner, it was their spouse, they were like, hey, for the next 4 years, like I'm gonna be pretty absent. Like I'm doing all this stuff. I think they were like getting a degree and they were in leadership and all these things, but I promise I'll come back to you. And it's this idea, and I've been talking about this lately about this short-term discomfort for
Yes.
long-term gain. Like we
Yes.
know that there's an end to these things. And so to the younger officer, can you communicate and set those expectations of, hey, I'm young in my career. I have goals and aspirations. I really want to become the best at what I do. And so, therefore, I'm going to have to put in the time and the effort and the work. And so, I probably likely will be absent more than maybe you would like for me to be. But I promise when we get over that hump, I'm coming back to you and I'm still going to be invested in our relationship, but just know that I'm going to be putting a lot of time and energy in this place. And I think people really like to just have those realistic expectations set for themselves. And when you can agree to that as a team, then it makes things a lot easier than maybe thinking it's going to be one way and then it being something completely different.
100%. Absolutely. And my wife and I had that, I got my master's degree. She's has her master's working on her doctorate. And so we have this time frame. So we have these goals. Okay, this is going to take me 2 years. This is going to take her 3 years. So we understand the time commitments, and we give that to each other. Another example is one of our younger sergeants. He just finished his master's degree, and he's got two young girls. I think 8 and 13. And for them to see him setting the time aside and reach those goals and to earn his master's degree as a older adult, really, because he didn't go from high school to college to master's to graduate school. And the kids went down when he walked to receive his degree, and it's also an encouraging moment for your family.
Yeah.
So it works in all areas of your life.
Yeah, 100%. I like that a lot because, leading kind of goes by leading by example a little bit. And so I want to talk about that because obviously you said you were the poster child. You maybe made some mistakes or, looking back, wish you could have done things a little bit differently. What made you kind of realize this later in life? And how do you think that that has impacted the way that you now lead your organization and the conversations that you have about wellness?
Yeah. So starting with wellness, luckily my dad was always physically fit. He's a baby boomer. Served in the Korean War and the Vietnam War, so he'll be 94 next month, and
Wow.
he's strong, still kicking. But always physically fit, stayed active, was lifting weights back in the 50s when people were saying, "Oh, you're gonna get muscle bound. What are you doing?" But he was lifting weights, running, exercising. So when I come along, he's already well in the late 40s, early 50s. So um, he got me exercising. And as a kid, had that constant reminder of like, yeah, sometimes when things get to you, just go for a run or just exercise and, try and get some rest and you'll come around and things aren't always as bad as they seem. Go exercise. Everything was for his, for his, to solve any problems. Just go for a run. Just go for a quick exercise. That'll help you. And it does. Obviously we know that now with the, benefits and the different chemicals in your brain and the feel good stuff. So that was my path early on. So I'm really lucky to have that because that established my baseline as a kid.
Yeah.
So I continued that, obviously. Um, Showing that now with our officers when it comes to wellness, I make sure I go into the gym once a day, 15, 20 minutes. Doesn't have to be long, sometimes a little bit longer, but they see me go in there. They see me sweat a little bit, work out. Sometimes they pop in, have little conversations, so I want them to see me in the gym working out, doing something because we allow them to work out on duty as well.
Yeah.
uh, on the other hand, my captain, also very physically fit, he comes in the morning, so he comes in over the overlapping shifts. So when guys come in early to work out or guys are getting off shift to work out, he's there. So both of us kind of tag team, and we were kind of loud about it. It's like, hey, did you work out today? Hey, you taking care of yourself? So we're not in their face obnoxious, but it's a constant reminder. And we try to be that little gentle nudge. And we have a few guys who've taken to it, and some are, they're right on the fence, they just had kids, they're looking for time. So, working with them. But when it comes to leading examples, I think that's a good example of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Do you think that that's a key component to getting buy-in and creating a culture is for leadership to be actively showing that they are also participating in these things?
Oh, that's a must. That's a must because they see that, and there's no doubt. You know, it's like, oh, they're telling us to do something, but they don't do it. Or you're heavy set, you're overweight, and you have diabetes, and okay, they got I'm particularly, we don't want any of that. So luckily, all our sergeants actually have been working out, getting in shape. Some more than others, obviously, or they're aware of it. We have one guy we're still working on. He's a little slow, but we're on him.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit because, you know, whenever I work with an agency, everyone's like, well, we got to get the sergeants to buy in. It's always kind of like, I don't know. I don't know like which ones are going to buy in and which ones aren't. And you had mentioned to me that, sergeants are future leaders. And so you're really trying to invest in them and, the culture and wellness. How do you get their buy-in? Is it what we said, just leading by example, or do you have other strategies to get them on board with the same mission?
Yeah, how do you get them excited about their job, right? How do you get
Yeah.
them excited about our department, about our community? And we've made such a change in the last, so I've been here in Greenfield now 5 years total, and we've done a 180 with the culture, and expectations of our sergeants. We kind of built up the department a little bit as well. But when I first became chief, I was doing the job of number one and number two. I didn't have a captain. So we're a small agency, 23 sworn, right? Chief, captain, five sergeants, and officers. So I was doing both jobs for administration, but because we're small and there was some activity, I'd run out in the field with them. Um, we'd handle some calls. Sometimes there was barricaded suspect or some sort of perimeter type thing. And, small agency, they don't have the repetition of the experience, so I was able to impart some of that. So when they see me handling a situation, kind of calm, methodical, patience, Um, because I've done it before, they see that. So there's many different factors that kind of play into why they buy into what I'm telling them,
Mm.
and why we should do something a certain way. So when it comes to the fitness aspect, or the wellness aspect, or growing my sergeants mainly, um, wow, getting them on board was a heck of a lot easier once I started sending them to some upper management classes. So
Mm. Okay.
they're all going to the Sherman Block Leadership Institute. I only have one that hasn't gone yet. I've sent two to the FBI National Academy, lining up my third. Um, one has already been to, they've all been obviously supervisory level school. Then there's a management level school. Then there's an executive level school. So one's already been to the management level school, and I want them to go to all three levels. Um, the FBI LEDA trilogy, I think there's only two sergeants that haven't completed it, and I haven't completed it either, so I need to. That way we can get the full staff through the FBI leadership trilogy. So giving him those trainings where they takes them someplace else and they meet other people from other agencies, and oh wow, you've got 10 years on, you're a sergeant, and they're sending you to this. Wow, that's great. I've got 20 years on. So they see the benefit and they see the privilege that they have when we send them away to some of these trainings. So then
Yeah.
they come back invigorated, they share it. The next sergeant, oh, I can't wait to go. And they go maybe someplace out of state, maybe someplace within California, but San Diego, Carlsbad, Folsom, someplace fun. They have a good time, they meet people, they come back reinvigorated.
Hmm.
So it's also a retention thing, but it builds them up. It gets them energetic about doing the job and wanting to share and wanting to grow.
Yeah. I like that, actively investing in education and development. And I would imagine that it helps with burnout. It helps you to get excited about the future and that there is something like a next step for you. And because the one thing I hear all the time is, and I've experienced this too, this period of stagnation where you're like, what am I doing here? I've just been doing the same thing over and over and over again. So to have a leadership team that's investing in you and in your future development, I think is great. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that.
Yeah, no, no, it's huge, and it's a great retention thing. And you're right, that
Yeah.
burnout, that every day, every day, every day, all of a sudden they're gone for a week or maybe 2 weeks someplace else, and they can take their family.
Yeah.
Then they come back and they're just like pumped. You know, and another benefit, still have a lot of good friends in Los Angeles, LAPD. We've been sending guys down two at a time for a 4-day course, doing some shooting, tactical stuff, communication, traffic stops. And they enjoy going on some ride-alongs, go for a ride in the helicopter. They come back and they're just jazzed and pumped because now they're learning another set of skills from a different department, and it's different, but more tools for the toolbox, right?
Right.
But sending them and them getting away, being able to kind of hang out, do the thing. Sometimes they take their families. It's such a when you invest in people and they enjoy it and they come back and they just get pumped.
Yeah. I think, human nature, we all want to feel like we're valued for the work that we do. Have you heard that expression? And I hope I don't butcher this right now, but it's the people don't care how much you know until they know how much you
But you
care.
care, yeah,
And so that was what popped into my mind when you say retention, because I think that a lot of people, one, I think everyone wants to work for an agency where there's a good environment and culture, and that they know that the department is investing in their training and their future. And then, like you said, it's going to keep people there because they're going to look around and they're going to be like, oh, well, this other agency doesn't do that, but my agency does that. And they actually care about me and they value me. And so I want to stay here and I want to keep growing and stay on track with that mission that we've built together and that culture that we've built together. So that was what popped in my head is that saying of like actually showing them that you care about them.
absolutely. And what do three people want from their leaders? Do you care about me? Will you help me? And can I trust you?
Yeah.
Give them those three things. Yes, I care about you. Yes, I will help you. And yes, you can trust me.
Yeah, well, and I think it goes beyond saying it, it's showing it.
Right.
And, everything that you just went over is actionable. It's, hey, like, yes, we're going to say that. we care about you and that we're going to take care of you and that you can trust us, but we're also going to show you that. We're going to back that up through our actions.
Absolutely.
You said that you don't want to call it a wellness program. What do you
No,
want to call it?
you know, trying to come up with a decent name for it, but really, this is just how we should treat each other, right? Because we spend so much time together. We spend more time together during the day than we do with our own families back at home, unless you're on a day off, right? So we're here 8, 10, 12, 13, 15 hours, right? So this environment, um, it should be a norm, not a program,
Yeah.
right? So I don't want to call it a wellness program. Um, but I'm not sure what really to call it, but it should be our norm. This should be our norm. Treat each other well, treat each other with respect. Let's take care of each other. Let's work out. Let's laugh. Let's have a good time.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And it's the the thread that's woven within the culture. One of the things that I've predicted, we'll see. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I agree with you. I think that when we talk about breaking stigma, we know that there's still stigma around wellness, right? And I think just that word or mental health, like there's things that we talk about where it's like, ooh, there's kind of like that knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, I don't know. And I think right now we have these two silos, right? You have training and development, and then you have wellness. And I really, really, truly believe, and you can tell me if you have a different opinion, but I believe that they feed into each other. The better that you are physically, the better you can do your job physically, right? The better that you are mentally. If you're good mentally, you can make better decisions. You can show up with a better attitude. All of these things I think go really hand in hand. And so I think that eventually it's not going to be wellness and training, it's going to be training. And that's
Right.
normal because training's accepted, right? It's like this is what we do to make sure that we're proficient and efficient and effective at what we do, within our career. And all the wellness stuff is just going to be infused into what you guys do in a normal training.
Exactly. Our human performance program, right? Because it's all spaghetti. It's all spaghetti. You're not a waffle. Everything's spaghetti. Everything touches everything, and it should be the norm. And really, it's about human performance.
Yep, exactly. I like that you said laugh. Like we want to laugh, we want to have a good time. I think that as we get older, we almost lose that just in general. Like everything becomes stress and serious, and we kind of lose that ability to laugh things off and like not take, and you said this, like not like take ourselves too seriously. Take the job seriously, but not take ourselves too seriously. And I think that there are more pillars to wellness, or to training than we think. Do you think that humor and having a positive attitude is a piece of that?
Huge, huge. Um, our personnel need to see us have a good time. They need to see us enjoy our job.
Hmm.
They need to see us laughing and because this is our life, this is our profession. So they need to see us enjoying it. Um, and it goes a long way towards the morale, um, our attitude, how we deal with the bumps that happen, the ability to pivot and have that mental agility, right? When you're lighthearted about something or you don't take it to heart, you're able to think clearly and make that pivot a little bit faster, versus getting bogged down and, oh no, this is happening, this is terrible, oh no, versus cool, okay, that's the playing field. So what are we going to do? Let's work this out.
Yeah.
So yeah, humor, laughter, and we are very relaxed in that regard. Like we have, the wall banging, wall of shame, where guys make fun of each other. They'll post up cartoons or pictures or whatever. Nobody's off limits. I'm on it, and that's okay. I go in there and laugh all the time with the new ones, but it keeps it lighthearted,
Yeah.
and that plays into something else. Talking about spaghetti, correction of bad behavior, peer pressure, right? As long as it's coming out in a lighthearted manner, sometimes serious, but direct, but not not in a hi, got you, I'm going to IA you, but in a hey, this could be a training moment. Let's learn about this. And then you laugh about it. Oh, you should do this out, and you learn from it. But it comes from a lighthearted way, not in the mean, hammer coming down type of attitude. So it plays into so many different aspects, training to learning to, dealing with the call, debriefing, right? So yeah, it plays in everything.
I think that positivity and negativity are both so contagious, and we get to choose which way we see things. And I think that we forget how much power and control we have over that. A lot of times, and I've done this more than I want to admit, so I'm definitely not perfect, but um, I think so often I like point my fingers at other things and I forget that, like, no, I get to decide how I respond to this situation. And it could be really bad. It could be really sucky, really stressful. And yes, there are things that have to be addressed always, but I have control over my actions and reactions to things, and I have control over how I see things and how I move forward. Things are always going to happen. The sky's always going to fall in one way or another. How can we learn from that, grow from that, and move forward from that? And how can we train ourselves to think of things and to see things with more positivity so that it's contagious, and it's not just contagious within us individually, but also within, the team. And I think that goes back into training. I really believe that it's mental training, that the more you have gratitude and positivity, the more you're going to have positivity and gratitude. Like that's it,
Yeah.
they feed into another. And in reverse is true. The more you complain, the more you see the bad and everything, the more you're going to see those things. Your life becomes consumed by it. So again, I think it goes back to training. And I agree with you. It's like, how can we, because there's a lot of things we can't control and there's a lot of things that are going to be hard, but how can we create an environment within ourselves and within our circle that is more positive?
Absolutely. You said a lot there, and it really does.
Sorry.
No, 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 but it's all true. It starts with us, and it matters our attitude. Some people don't have that, and and that makes it hard. They're the one that the anchor that's constantly dragging people back.
Mhm.
Maybe they're one of the union leaders, and they're just constantly negative, looking for the fight. So yeah, it's a constant. I won't say battle, but it is something at the forefront that we're always dealing with.
Yeah, an image just kind of popped in my mind. I'm a really visual person, and I thought of this image of like a tug of war. Do you
Mhm.
remember, like as a
Oh
kid,
yeah.
and in the middle there's like a mud pit, right? And there's this tug of war, and when it's equal, it's going to go back and forth. So if you have half of the team that's really positive and half of the team that's negative, it's going to be kind of that equal back and forth. I think the goal is to start bringing people from the negative side over to the positive side one by one. And eventually, the negative becomes the minority, right? It becomes
Yes.
less. And then the positivity is going to win. And it could go the opposite. So it's like, how can we every day put in, place those steps to where, because no one likes to be that person in the room where everyone's having a good time and you're the Debbie Downer. No one
Right.
wants to be that guy or that girl. So how do you create that negative group as like the minority and the positivity is the majority? And then eventually, hopefully there's, you weed out all of the negativity is like best case scenario. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but
Yeah, no, I mean, you're talking about the tipping point, right?
Mhm.
You get your early adopters bringing them over, and they'll bring the rest of the crew over, and that's what we did with our sergeants. There's a
Yeah.
few officers that were early adopters to our way of thinking, and they jumped right in. The sergeants, the majority of them were. We had to work on a couple of the other ones that wanted to drag their feet a little bit. It was like, I'm here to make sure they stay safe. That's all. I don't need to care about their personal life. And I was like, well, let's talk about that. What do you know about emotional intelligence? So that was our work, and part of our battle was to get some of those more resistant sergeants who were remembered things in past, how they were treated in the past. And it's like, yeah, what happened in the early 2000s really doesn't work nowadays. People want to be appreciated. Our generation, our younger generations operate a little bit differently, so we have to adjust to them as well. Yes, we have expectations, we have standards that we're going to meet those, but personally, we can adjust as well, and we can make ourselves better to help them get better.
Yeah.
And then you have those that just dig their feet in. And I learned this term recently, the plastic plant, right? So you have this plastic plant, you can add water, you can give it all the nutrients, the sun, whatever you want. It's not going to change. It's a plastic plant.
Yeah.
That's the one you gotta, okay, do you really need to be here? Are you happy here? Can we find you a place where you're going to be happier? Because they are not going to change. There are plastic plants. Luckily, we've done away with some of the plastic plants. They did it on their own, and they left and aren't with our department anymore. So we're lucky in that regard. But that's always the battle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the number one questions I always get is, how do you get people to do things when they don't want to do them? Like, how do you get people to take that step to develop themselves, to grow, to change? And I think that word change is scary for people because,
Yeah,
there's the fear of the unknown. When you're in your ways and you've dug your heels in, like that's a safety zone, right? You know what to expect, like it's your comfort zone. And change, I think, is scary because I think that there's maybe this negative connotation to it. But I think for me, and this has been my success, and I'm not saying that it's 100%. I don't think anyone's ever going to bat 100. But for me, I found a lot of success in really trying to get those people to identify within themselves why these things are important for them, and maybe there are people that are like, either way, not, I'm going to be plastic plant forever. But I have had success, especially with the younger generation who maybe don't think that it's a priority for them now. And we talked about this before, like that's a problem for later. Really trying to ask yourself, because a lot of us are bad at taking care of ourselves. I'm really bad at taking care of myself. I'm a people pleaser. I want to like make everybody else happy first. I've always been that way. I think it's just how I grew up in my childhood environment is like try to keep the peace and, try to, evolve to everybody else. And but if you're not willing to do it for you, who are you willing to do it for? Why is it important to you? And you mentioned before that a lot of people will say it's their family. A lot of the younger generation, I think they really want to prove themselves. They want to be safe and effective for their team and for their community. Like, they have advancement goals in mind. And so I've had a lot of success with that of just saying, hey, like, don't listen to me. I'm not going to tell you what to do because I'm no one to you, from my position. Obviously, you're different. You can tell people what to do. But don't listen to me. Like, why is it important for you? Like, you need to identify that for yourself. Do you want to be here for your grandkids? Do you, want to be safe and be able to save your partner's life out there in the field? Like, what is that why? And then let that be the reason why you take steps towards that growth and towards that change. And I think that when people have that, it helps. It's not, of course, a perfect solution, but it's been something I've found to be successful.
absolutely. It's like, what do you want? What do you want to do? Especially with some of the older officers, and they're getting a little heavy, and it's like, hey, your son, your granddad now. Can you pick up the baby? Can don't you want to spend time with them? That's motivating, isn't it? But you're right. When you show them or point out things that are worth it, maybe outside of them, if they don't care about themselves in that regard, then that motivation says, oh, wait a minute, yeah, that clicks.
Yeah. I also think that when we talk about proactive measures, maybe someone doesn't feel like they want it today, but maybe tomorrow, maybe a year from now, there's something that happens in their life where they have that aha moment and they're like, whoa. Maybe they saw a doctor and they realize that they are pre-diabetic and they're like, man, I don't want to be diabetic, so what do I got to do now? So, having that culture and having those measures in place proactively, so if and when those people do come around and there is that time where they're like, okay, now I'm ready, they have things that they can grab onto.
Absolutely.
My final question for you is for that younger generation, the younger men and women who are coming into this career. What words of wisdom would you share with them? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier or something that's helped you along the way.
Something that's helped me along the way and is figuring it out. Like, you have a job, things happen, there's these obstacles, you don't just stop. You figure it out, you get after it, and you get the job done. And that and having a positive attitude with that, and looking to succeed in whatever it is you're doing, is huge because that attitude plays into everything else. And people see that motivation or that hunger to want to do something or to figure it out. It's like, oh, wow, hey, yeah, you encountered that and you got over it and you did this. Oh, okay, hey, you showed good gumption and motivation and you were proactive. That's great. Figuring stuff out and getting past that bump is huge. A lot of people give up, and they hit that first obstacle, they just stop, and no, to be successful, if you want to do more, if you want a good time and you want to learn and you have a growth mentality and you have the energy, figure it out, do more,
Yeah.
just keep moving, just keep swimming.
Just keeps I love that. I'm literally Dory, like directionally, and like, I love that. But I agree with you. I think that when you do get over that hump, it builds confidence. And I think that that builds resilience. How can you,
Does.
no matter what, just
Yes,
keep going?
exactly. And spaghetti, because in so many other things in your life, it's going to help you. Just do it. Just keep swimming. Just go. You get it done.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today and coming on here and sharing your insights and your perspectives. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Of course.